SeizeYourBusiness.com podcast with Tony Rourke and Kevin O'Flaherty.
SeizeYourBusiness.com, making you money. Share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn, Twitter, our blogs, YouTube videos. Listen to our podcast, getting so hot that it's burning up the stereo.
Welcome to the SeizeYourBusiness.com podcast, coming to you from our speakeasy in lovely downtown Downers Grove, Illinois. Our guest today is Chuck Zimmerman from Corporate Strategies and Solutions. Our hosts are Kevin O'Flaherty from O'Flaherty Law and myself, Tony Rourke from ADR Business Resource Group. If you find the podcast helpful or if you want to help us out, we would appreciate it if you would review us on iTunes or share our podcast on social media. So without further ado, I'll hand this off to Kevin.
Chuck, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Our topic's going to be sales and business growth. And why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Okay. Well, I'm with Corporate Strategies and Solutions. We're a Sandler Training Center. We really, if I was to break it down, we work with business owners. And a lot of things that I hear from business owners is that they have some good people doing some really good things, but they have some concerns. And some of their concerns are relative to sales are their people are doing a lot of activity, but they don't know if it's productive activity, or they're out there doing a lot of proposals, but none of those proposals are coming back in. Mm-hmm. And they really wonder because they're concerned. They look at the pipeline and it's not what they said, what the salespeople said it was going to be, and it's disappointing because it's evaporating their bottom line. You know, when I work with companies, I help with that.
Do you put systems in place for these business owners to kind of help them evaluate their sales and oh, go ahead.
We do if it makes sense. We work in a few different areas. We're in 4 buckets really. If you really look at it, we consult with the business owner, and we'll sit down. We'll have a conversation with the business owner, and we'll help them lay out a vision or a structure or a mission statement and a strategy, and they'll go attack it because they know how to go about doing that. But then there's a few other areas that we're working where we do processes, we do procedures relative to growing the business. And what I mean by that is we do assessments. You know, we assess the staff that they have, or we assess the staff that they're looking to bring in through an assessment process that we have. Another thing that we do is we do training. We do leadership training, we do management training, and we do sales productivity training. And then we also do coaching, because there's a lot of organizations out there that do training, but they don't have that coaching component. And if you just do the training without the coaching, it's just entertainment. Mm-hmm. So a long answer, yes, we do.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see salespeople making that have them being active but not productive?
Let me put that back at salespeople or business owners.
I'd be interested to hear both.
Okay. Salespeople, they rely a lot on personality and intuition for selling. And the problem with that is that they don't have a methodology. They don't have a process that they can follow, or a system that they can follow to see where something went wrong. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they sell on that personality and intuition, and then when something goes astray, they blame external factors instead of looking internally. That's one of the biggest ones. The one on the business side is they hire on intuition and personality, and then they don't have true measurements put in place to manage the salespeople. And they do that by supervision, which is just one small component of it. And they tell them to do more of the same thing, which doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm.
And so how do you help them fix those problems? What are some of the big tools in your toolbox that you use to help business owners fix those problems?
Well, the first thing I like to do is I like to sit down with them, and I really like to get inside their head, if you will. I want to walk a mile in their shoes so I know where they're at, how they got there, what they're looking to achieve. Once I have that conversation, then I need to figure out where they're trying to go and why they haven't gotten there. Mm-hmm. They come times over.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and is that coming back to relying a lot on personality and your gut as opposed to having a process?
It really is. And there's some successful salespeople out there that rely on that, and they're really good. It doesn't mean they can't be better. If you have a process, and most organizations don't have a process, what they end up doing is they end up following the buyer's process. And the buyer's process is quite simply the buyer misleads the salespeople. They mislead into, yes, they're interested. They show interest. That's a mislead. That's a nice way to call it. Another way to call it is they lie. They show interest, and they do that because us salespeople let them. But they do that also because they want information, and that's their next step in the buyer's process. Is they steal the information. They take our time, they take our information, they take our resources, they steal all that, and really it's not stealing because we give it to them because we think that if we educate the prospect, they're going to like us, they're going to buy from us.
Well, isn't there but there's a delicate balance there because you do have to educate people, but only to a degree. You don't give them all your nuggets.
Yeah, you give them a little bit of something so you can start, because reality is what we teach in a nutshell. If you really strip it down, we teach people how to have open and honest communication between each other.
Okay.
That's it. Open and honest communication. And you can't do that if it's going to be the salesperson against the prospect. We teach how to open it up, and if you guys want to have a conversation, if they want to have a conversation with me, great. And if they don't, that's fine as well. Then I need to figure out.
I went to one of your sales seminars, and it was great. And what you're talking about was the takeaway that stuck with me was the buyer's sales strategy, or the buyer's strategy, buying strategy is mislead, steal information, mislead again, and then hide.
Yeah, yeah, they do. And the traditional salesperson, what do? They follow that process to a T. Is they find interest, and then they do that needs analysis thing, and then they present. They put on a great presentation. Whatever it is, they've got a beautiful canned presentation that they show everybody, and then they handle stalls and objections, and then they chase. Sales is the only profession that you can stalk people because you legally you could chase them, and if you put that right up to the buyer's process, who has control? The buyer does.
So how do you change that process in order to put the control back into the hands of the salesperson?
Get a system that you can figure out how to have open and honest communication, and you can first have that connection, set the rules up front. Before you be an attorney, there's rules of engagement.
Sure.
There's rules of engagement in sales as well. Lay those rules out. Make sure everybody wants to play against those, and then find out what the prospect really needs and why they're looking for it. Not just what. Most people jump on the what and then they try to fix the what.
Yeah,
they need to figure out why and how is that personally and professionally impacting them.
Sure. So I assume you. It sounds like you believe in educational selling. And by that I mean educate the prospect on exactly what you do and how you can provide a value. And if you do that right, then it should be a no-brainer for them to hire you, right? Well,
I believe, and we have a rule. We're rules-based. We're not script-based because scripts don't work. The prospect doesn't have the other end of the script. We're rules-based. One of our rules is sell today, educate tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm more of an opponent of trying to figure out what's ailing them, and if it makes sense for me to help them. And it's more of I want them to educate me on what's going on, and then I'll figure out if I can help them. Okay. I'm not gonna, because I can educate them until I'm blue in the face, but that's trying to convince somebody into doing something to show how smart I am. The only person that's helping is me. I'm getting my needs met. The prospect doesn't want to hear that. The buyer does not want to hear that because they hear that from everybody else.
Okay.
So are you more about find out what their pain is?
I'm more
show
about
them why you're the doctor.
Yeah, find out more about what their issue is.
Yeah. Okay.
And see if I can help. I'm more about building trust. Building trust with somebody, and I'm not saying become a professional visitor, and I'm not saying have my pipeline full of friends. I'm talking about being that trusted advisor where it's okay if I tell them no, because there's most people that I can't help, and I'm okay with that.
What are some strategies that, and it just sounds funny to even say this, but strategies that you teach people to build trust with people? Because even having a strategy sounds like, not a great way to build trust. But obviously, you've got to, that's an important part of your yeah,
because you're almost saying it's like manipulation,
yeah,
right?
It is.
Right? And reality, there's only a few things that manipulation is a good thing. In law, because it's the definition of the truth, right? That's a relative term. In psychology, you don't want You don't want the therapist coming out and saying, "What's wrong with you?" right away, do you? You got to gradually work into that. And
Yep.
sports. Sports. You're not gonna. The quarterback's not gonna say, "I'm gonna pass it to this guy."
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a manipulation process there, but in sales, it's not a manipulation and a bad thing. It's more of a trying to figure out who I'm talking to. So when I'm talking about building that trust, it's more of a scientific approach. Who am I talking to? What's their personality?
Mm-hmm.
And not, boy, they're a nice guy. I'm going even deeper in that about what is their personality trait and what are they relative to neuro-linguistic programming, and where are they at in birth order? Because a firstborn buys completely different than a lastborn.
Tell me a little bit more about that. That's interesting. Yeah. What's the difference in the buying procedure for a firstborn and a lastborn?
Well, let's back it up. Let's back it up to where the parents, you're a parent, you have 2 kids now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the firstborn, baby book, pictures,
Yeah.
pretty detailed,
Sure.
right? Pacifier drops on the floor. What do?
Well, you clean it off.
You clean it off, and now all of a sudden the second one comes by.
Yeah, you wipe it on your jeans.
Yeah, you wipe it on your jeans. You wipe it on your jeans, and they'll grow up that way with different ways, because our personalities or the way our records in our head are really formed from the time we were born until we were 6 years old, and then that recorder goes off, and that's how we show up the rest of our lives in the world. And a firstborn, it's their rules. They were the first one out.
Mm-hmm.
It's my rules, or I'll beat you up. The lastborn, they're going to take anything I can get.
My poor 7-month-old.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of what you do is just get information about the person, have a conversation, find out what makes them tick, and then you can figure out how they want to be sold to.
In the most simplistic form, yes. Sales, if you really look at it, people get into sales because there was no other option. Nobody grows up saying, "Boy, I can't wait to be a salesperson." We just end up that way. And a lot of business owners, they end up selling because they didn't want to work for somebody anymore. So they said, "I'm going to start my own business," because they're really good at it. And all of a sudden, oh crap, I need to get clients.
Yeah.
I have to go sell. Nobody likes being a salesperson. We were taught at a very young age we don't want to do that. So I don't even know where I was going there.
I think we were talking about getting information about people.
Yeah.
And then using that,
so the simplistic form is, gathering that information, but then there's a whole nother process, and that's where I was going. Is that sales is more like 3-level chess. If you want to become a professional salesperson, not an amateur salesperson, but a true professional salesperson, it's like playing 3-level chess. You need to have 5 moves ahead of your prospect at any given time. And it's like playing 3 games all at one time. Most of the amateurs, they go in there and they don't do that. They're very reactionary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very intentional when I go into a sales call. And that's what I teach my people, to be very intentional. And not one-sided intention, but mutually beneficial. What are we trying to accomplish here?
Do you teach people to do a lot of pre-planning for sales calls?
Have to do a lot of pre-planning. You have to do pre-planning, and not getting ready to get ready, but actually have your plan. What's your plan of attack for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do that?
Within that plan, how do you help people with the boogaboo, prospecting, cold calling, all that?
Cold calling sucks, doesn't it?
Amen, brother.
Yeah, it's just terrible, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
How do you help people? Because I would imagine that a lot of salespeople stop themselves cold, no pun intended, because of that cold call.
It's about us, right?
It's not about them at all.
Prospect doesn't care about you. None of us. I'm sorry, but they don't. So if you're putting all that pressure on yourself, the prospect's going to sense it, and you're making it about you. Nobody wants to be in front of a salesperson that's making it about them. Nobody.
No, that's a good nugget. That's a light bulb right there.
Good.
It's interesting.
Well, that helped me with you, to be honest with you. When we first met, I go in, my rule, I don't try to close anything on the first shot. That takes all my pressure off of me. Mm-hmm. Then I can focus back on that person. Mm-hmm. So I already know I'm going to have this conversation with this person at least one more time. So I can figure out where they are. And sometimes with you, we had like probably 6, 7, 8 conversations.
Not with Kevin.
Yeah, I know, right? But it was always about figuring out, and if you think back, each question I asked you was about the law firm or what you saw for the law firm. And that's how I take that pressure off of me. But I was just interested to hear how you help somebody with prospecting that either one, people we're talking to that have never done it, which is scary, or have done it and got lots of no's, and they let that affect them over an extended period of time. So just curious your thoughts on that.
One of the things about prospecting is most people are very reactionary about it. They look at their pipeline, it's low, so they go out there and they do a flurry of activity to fill up the pipeline, and then when they fill the pipeline up, they ease off.
Yep.
And then they try to get it up, and that's very exhausting. That's like sprinting a marathon. You're never going to finish. What we like to do is we like to figure out what we call a cookbook. What's your daily, weekly, monthly plan of attack? What are your top 10 behaviors that you need to do every day, in and out, every week, in and out, to be successful? And if you follow that plan, you're going to be successful. And we don't say make X amount of cold calls, because everybody's different and every situation's different. What we do say is pick a number that you're comfortable with and then make that number better every time. Don't do more of it, but make those calls better.
And that's your desire and commitment.
That's your desire and commitment, because most people say, well, just do more calls. It's a numbers game, right? Well, no, not if you really look at it. It's not don't do more of the same. I'm getting bad results. Why would I want to do more of the same?
That's how it's taught.
Let's figure out how to get better at what we're doing.
That's why I think guys like you are so wonderful and useful for sales managers, because we got to get to that sales manager level, because salespeople get promoted to sales managers, and then they
falsely, right?
Completely, and then teach everybody below them, which they're not usually good at teaching. But anyway, they teach everybody below them to do these techniques and stuff that doesn't really work.
Well, that
guy got lucky.
They teach the do as I do model.
Yeah,
that's what they teach, because they don't know how to go about doing it. They just all of a sudden got promoted because they're really good at sales, and then they say, okay, hire a bunch of you. So then they try to hire a bunch of you, and they hire on intuition.
Yes.
Well, they're going to be good because they were really good in the interview. Well, that was the best sales job they had. What are their behaviors? What's underneath the hood? Okay. And some people, the reason we have such great success, we don't work with people that aren't trainable. Okay. Our assessment process comes out. If they're not trainable, we don't work with them. Why would we?
Which is why you're comfortable with just walking away.
Yeah, it does. I'm comfortable with it because there's enough opportunity. I come from an abundant mindset. I don't come from a scarcity mindset. And when you come from an abundant mindset, prospecting isn't a problem. When you come from, it's just hysterical activity on the way to the grave. I just go and I have fun with it. Whatever comes out of my mouth, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad.
We're talking about sales managers. What are some of the things that sales managers could be doing better that you see a lot of? What sales management is a really difficult nut to crack, because you've got to really, salespeople are interesting birds a lot of the time, and you've got to try to get them to do something that you want them to do and enhance their sales. And, as they've often got minds of their own, and that can be difficult.
It's like herding cats.
Sales manager can be like herding cats, or it can be one of the most rewarding jobs ever. And what I mean by that is when you work with a sales manager, most sales managers focus on the supervision aspect of it. If you want to have a really good sales manager, they should be supervising, they should be mentoring, they should be coaching, they should be training, and they should be hiring. They should always be recruiting. And there's a percentage there that I'm not going to get into, but there's a percentage. They should be doing all that. Majority managers, they just do supervision. And the problem with supervision is you have soaring eagles underneath your team that are going to leave because they're looking to grow and you're not giving that to them. Sales manager is a very difficult job, or it's the most rewarding, depending on how you look at it. And it's a very hard job to hire for.
And that's where you come in to help vet the right people, right?
Yeah, because you got to have the right, because speed of the leader, speed of the team, right? And the problem with the sales manager is not only do they have to manage down, but they have to manage up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have to do both ends. And if you look at it going back to the birth order thing, you know, if you look at the middle child, they're very good at middle management because they had to negotiate up so they didn't get beat up, and then they manipulated down to get the things that they wanted. You know, and sometimes people don't get that.
What does good mentoring from a sales manager look like to you? 'Cause that's something that's been difficult for me as a sales manager to do.
The biggest thing about mentoring is do what you say. Do what you say you're going to do. And don't give them fluff and then not do it yourself. Don't give them something that you would never do.
Okay.
So don't go out there and tell them make 100 cold calls unless you're really, really willing to do it.
Unless you're
with them.
committed to make 100 cold calls.
Amen.
Show up as you want them to see you, and be that way. Be that way.
All right.
Do you are you a sports guy?
I am. Yeah.
Are you? Do you watch basketball?
Yeah.
Is
Love basketball.
what I hear is Coach K, Coach Calipari. You know, the good basketball coaches. They do that. They mentor. They coach. I mean, the whole thing.
You've got to be all of it. You have to be all of it, and you can be a sales manager, as in the beatings will continue until morale improves,
Mm-hmm.
or you can build a team that is going to go through a wall for you without you even asking. That's when you have a good team, and that's when you know you're doing something right.
Do you still come across a lot of guys like that? I'm gonna just beat you into submission
Every day.
Really? God. Wow.
That's what we didn't know any better. That's what we were taught.
Yeah.
And so it sounds to me like you think the biggest difference from going to an ineffective, hardcore a-hole sales manager to someone that people want to follow is leadership by example. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Leadership by example, but then also now you're getting into the coaching aspect, you're getting into the training aspect. What value are you bringing your people? What tools are you giving them to show them that you want to work yourself out of a job?
Mm-hmm.
How are you trying to promote the people that you have underneath you? You know, some of the best organizations, they hire people constantly because they're getting rid of the people that aren't making it, but they're also promoting, or they're helping people achieve their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more rewarding than me for somebody that's working for me that all of a sudden decides to quit because they have a better opportunity, because I built them up to where they did all the work themselves, but they found a better opportunity, and I was able to help them secure that, because that's going to come back tenfold.
And we talk about, you mentioned the first step is recruiting. Where do you go to find good salespeople? When I want to hire an attorney, often I'll make a Craigslist or Facebook posting and do a job listing that way. It seems like that's a less effective way to find salespeople.
It's one way. Recruiting goes back to the same thing with prospecting. Prospecting, you can do cold calls, which isn't very effective. You could do electronic mail. You could do snail mail. You could do referrals. You could do introductions. We could do speaking engagements, right? To get that stuff. Hiring is very much the same way. Best way to hire somebody is referrals from people that you know. Referrals from the people that you have in your organization. And by the way, if you're not getting referrals from people in your organization to say, hey, this guy would like to work here, or this girl would like to work here, then you have a culture problem. Because if you're not getting referrals from the people that work with you, what does that say about how comfortable they are working there?
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ooh, wow.
You really got to look at that.
Do you have a favorite sales book or something that you have based a lot of your sales philosophy on?
People ask me that question a lot, and I have a lot of sales books. You want to get good at sales? Buy business books. Okay. Read business books, Because if you want to get good at that, figure out how business is ran, not how to sell.
Got a favorite business book?
Because business owners, there's a lot of them out there. Business owners speak their own tribal language. They speak their own language, and if you can figure out how to speak that language, you're going to have the equal business stature. Good to Great Mastery is a great book.
Okay.
I love that one. Great Game of Business is a great book. There's a lot of them out there.
We've learned a lot about the business owner language by doing this podcast, because this is episode 8, I think, and there's a lot of recurring themes. You know, people who don't know each other and have never met each other are talking about the same things. You know,
Just
fail faster keeps coming up, and you know there's a lot of business owners do speak a language, and I think that's very intelligent for you to tell salespeople, learn to speak that language, because business owners are who you're going to be selling to.
And I look at it fail forward. That's the way I look at it. Is fail forward. You know, people look at failing as a negative. Failing is a great thing, because that's the opportunity. Most people, when they get a sale, they say, okay, let's debrief this sale so we could figure out how to do it, so we could do it again. Instead of figuring out, let's debrief all the ones that we didn't get, because that's where we learn from. We get a lot more no's in the business than we do yeses. Embrace the no's. Go after the no's. I teach people, you were saying this earlier, I teach people to go for the no. I teach people, instead of going for a number of yeses a day, go for a number of no's. Worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to make a mistake. You're going to get a yes.
It's a good book, by the way, Go for No.
I haven't read that one. My reading list is growing here. So,
but that's a great point. Go for no's.
When you say go for no, does that mean just get an answer one way or the other?
It means that, but it also means figure out how many no's you're going to get in the day, and go for that. Don't go for how many yeses, because that sets you up. Well, I just need to make another dial. I just need to go to another. I just need to do this. I just need to do this. Go figure out how many no's you want to get for the day.
That's interesting. Another light bulb.
Yeah, and then figure out how to make it better. That's where you improve, is from the failures. You don't improve from the wins. You celebrate the wins.
If someone wants to get some help with their sales or their management, how can they contact you?
They can reach me at my phone number is 630-778-1500, extension 226. My email is czimmerman@sandler.com. Those are the best ways, and then you can go. Those are actually the best ways to get a hold of me.
All right. You got any other questions, Tony?
No, I'm just absorbing. I absorb, ask a couple of questions, absorb, ask questions.
I appreciate it, guys.
Good.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, Chuck.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Chuck.